Hi, welcome to Cycling Informed's weekly tips. My name's David Heatley and this is what we're going to be covering off. What to eat when you're out training and racing, how to get up hills fast, and a few tips on track cycling for kids. Now don't forget to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Now Lynn's asked the question, can you tell us about what we should be eating in our racing and training rides, and is carbs per kilo weight important? So look, there's a lot to nutrition and I'll just cover off a couple of the most important points. The first one is that you want to wean yourself off high GI carbohydrates onto low GI carbohydrates for generally most of the time when you're not on the bike. So that means things like brown rice, porridge and muesli and brown bread as your sources for low GI carbohydrates off the bike. Now for rides anything shorter than 2 hours, generally I recommend that you go out riding these on an empty stomach. Now it's important to understand that when you do go out for these rides and they're new to you, that you take some food with you so that if you do start feeling hungry, that you've got something to eat when you get out there. But the idea is to wean yourself off eating anything substantial before and during those rides that are less than 2 hours to work on your metabolic efficiency. So metabolic efficiency is all about conserving energy. Now when you're riding a bike, you're burning a combination of fat and carbohydrate to fuel you. And as the intensity increases, you burn a higher ratio of carbohydrate to fat. So the idea of becoming more metabolically efficient is to burn a higher degree of fat at higher intensities than you were doing previously. And this makes you more efficient. It means that you don't rely so much on having to consume a lot of carbohydrate when you're out on the road. So that technique that I described around metabolic efficiency, where you go out for a ride that's less than 2 hours on an empty stomach, is one of the main ways that we do this. Now the intensity when you're doing these rides needs to be fairly high. So you want to be riding in E3 or VO2 max when you're doing these rides. Now when you get to the end of these rides, you want to eat a low GI carbohydrate. Now for rides longer than 2 hours, I recommend that people run the 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. Now I'm not too worried about how you make up this 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate. Everybody's nutritional needs are quite particular and it's important to work out what works for you. So I would experiment with sports drinks, muesli bars, gels, chocolate bars, bananas, or whatever else takes your fancy that you can take on the bike that's portable, that's fairly carbohydrate dense. Now when you're racing, it's a little bit of a different story because you're riding at a higher intensity than you would normally on a long, slow endurance ride. You need to run a little bit of a different formula, and this formula is based on your weight. So the formula is 1 gram of carbohydrate to 1 kilogram of body weight per hour. Now if you weigh 60 kilograms, then you want to consume 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. If you weigh 80 kilograms, then you want to consume 80 grams of carbohydrate per hour. Now those are the two formulas that we run out for nutrition for when you're training and racing. Now it's important to practice your racing nutrition when you're out training close to the event, and that way you get your body used to that nutritional strategy so for on race day there's no surprises. Now Tina's asked me the question, how do I climb hills faster? Now I get asked this question a lot, and the first thing I say to people is that you want to lose a little bit of weight if you have the opportunity to do that. You see, we work it out to be between 3 and 5 watts per kilogram. So if you lose a couple of kilograms, you'll find that you'll naturally be climbing hills faster without actually improving your fitness. Now we just put together this 12-week hill climber training program. Now this is a 6-disc pack. It's got 3 indoor training workouts in it. It's got a 12-week program and it's got the Matt Brindle functional strength training, beginner program 1, beginner program 2 and mobilizers. It's a complete package and it also includes training out on the road. Now this program's been based on our very successful remote coaching program, and we've generally found that people that are on this program and follow it usually see a performance improvement within around about 4 weeks. So if you do get the opportunity, please check it out on our web store. Now Jacques Robbins asked the question, track cycling for kids, what's the best gearing and recommended RPM, and some training tips. Now the first thing I recommend is that a lot of clubs in Australia run junior development programs. So if you have the opportunity, do get yourself enrolled in some of these programs. Now to answer your question around gearing and recommended RPM, well look, with juniors, depending on the age of the junior, the gearing is obviously going to change. So as the junior matures, the gearing is going to get harder. But what you want to do is you want to keep the cadence up high. And this is really critical for a couple of reasons. One is obviously junior cyclists are developing, so you don't want to load them up early. And there are gear restrictions anyway that limit the maximum gear that these junior riders can ride. Now the other thing is, because of the restrictions in gears, the only way to be successful in these junior events is to be able to spin or ride at really high cadences. Now it's not uncommon for juniors to be riding up 120, 130, 140, 150, 160 RPM during their events. So now I'm not saying that you should go out and put a junior on a bike and say, right, start off riding at 160 RPM. What I am saying is that you need to develop that high cadence riding over time. Now I hope you've enjoyed these cycling tips. My name's David Heatley from Cycling Inform.